Protection out of Glendale, California. And we're here today to discuss the Model 5600 SI pipe and cable locator. This is an instrument that SMUD has been purchasing from us, and a few of the locators would like us to do a demonstration today on the operations of the equipment. First thing we would like to do is, in a classroom format, we're going to go through the equipment, the operation of it, and then we'll go into actual field demonstrations outside. Basically, it's as most of the locators that you're using today are what they call active locators, and it's active in the fact that you have both a transmitter and a receiver, where you have to actively put the signal onto the line and then pick that signal back up again. As far as your transmitter goes, it runs on AA batteries. You have 8 in the bottom here. You have an on-off switch with a green light that will fade to both red and green when it's marginal, and will go completely red when it's time to change out those batteries. Now, what's very important with this instrument is when you're done, you need to put it in the off position, otherwise you'll wear the batteries dead. So, as far as putting signal into the line, you only have to remember 2 things. You have 2 modes of operation: direct hookup, conductive locating, or indirect or inducing the signal into a line or cable that you're tracking. As far as direct hookup goes, you'll take out the direct connection cables and plug them directly into the direct output jack. As soon as you do that, you turn the transmitter on, and you have 4 power strengths for this locator. You can hook up direct to the cable, and you can add a ground to an isolated ground with the black lead, shoving it into the earth. When you put that into the earth, all you're going to do is boost your signal. It's a high-low switch. You do not have to use the ground. If you use a ground, just know that you're going to increase your signal strength. So if you're going to want to trace in close to the transmitter, go ahead and take that ground lead off and leave it off. You can manipulate that signal, though, both ways. If you go direct hookup to a pipe or cable, metallic pipe or cable, you can leave the ground lead off. You can put it on high power, which is depressed, or low power, which is in the up position. You can go direct hookup with a ground, and you can go high and low as well. The least amount of signal you could put in would be direct hookup without a ground on low power. The most amount of signal would be direct hookup, adding the ground lead, and depressing the high button to high power, the other 2 positions being in between those. If you can, direct hookup is preferable as far as isolating your cable. If you cannot go direct hookup to a line, you can use also what's called induction. Induction, simply take the clips out of the box, and your transmitter has gone into the induction mode. It will shoot a signal out of the bottom of the box. You can set it next to a riser or over a utility. It will shoot a signal down and couple with the line. In this mode, it's preferred to use it on the high position, which would be depressed, because you want to get the most amount of signal you can inductively. Now, the 5600 SI has a patented feature, which you may or may not know. And what you can do is activate the SI part of the locator. Stands for superinduction. And what you do is turn the transmitter on and put it back into the carrying case like you're going to store it. Now you close up the carrying case, and some electronics built into the carrying case will re-radiate your signal field about 2 to 5 times the signal power, which would translate into 2 to 5 times the tracing distance on that utility. So you have the transmitter turned on in the carrying case, you set it down in line with the utility, and then you slightly offset it. And now you will just create a bigger field, or you can just set it right over a pull box or a meter or a pipe or a cable that you've been tracking, and you will track a lot further than you would just using the blue box by itself. So as far as putting signal into a line, you have direct hookup with or without the ground lead being a signal boost onto that line. And you have induction. You can use the blue box by itself, the transmitter, or you can incorporate the carrying case antenna as part of your transmitting signal and boost that. As far as picking up the signal, as most locators do, the Model 5600 works on both the peak method and the null method. A peak signal occurs when you have the antenna position flat. With the antenna position flat, you will get a fade out to the right, a fade out to the left, and it will beep over the line. It will give you a signal. The signal adjust, which turns it on, will determine how wide or tight that signal field is. Always start out with the locator on low power. When you cannot turn the signal adjust up any further, when the signal maxes out, then it would be time to go to high power. it will increase your tracing distance, but always start out on low. The other way to pick up a signal with this locator is with the antenna vertical. Vertical on either side, it does not matter. It puts it in a null mode, N-U-L-L, null, which means dead spot. It's the exact opposite as a peak. As soon as you rotate the antenna vertically, you will get a full signal to the right side of the pipe, a full signal to the left side of the pipe, and you will get a cutout right over it, or what's called a null. Now, the null point will occur in wider type positions, again, depending on your signal adjust control. So that is the only thing you need to get used to on this locator, is signal adjust. And we will go through this outside and show you how that works on a utility. As far as depth goes, you have to use what's called triangulation. And this will be better illustrated outdoors. But you put the antenna is notched at 45 degrees. You will pull it away from the pipe perpendicular to it. We will get another null point, and we measure that surface distance, let's say 18 inches. The only way we can verify that utility to be 18 inches, you must get 18 inches to the opposite side. So if you get equal reading and equal reading, say 18 and 18, it will be 18 inches deep. If you get 18 inches to one side and say 8 inches to the other, you cannot get a depth. It typically would be caused by another utility running in common trench with you. As far as the receiver gun has a telescoping antenna, you would always want to telescope it out while you're using it, although it would work in the up position. You have a signal adjust, which as soon as you turn that on, you have a green light, which again monitors 8 AA's in the bottom. That again is a dual LED, which will go half red, half green when they're marginal, completely red when the batteries are dead. You have an output jack for headphones, which are the cushy stereo 8-ohm headphones, or even the Walkman, although you notice the audio output on this is extremely strong, so you should not need to use the headphones. Now, most of your locators on the newer style will have the little toggle switch, and all that is a battery saver. If you notice on the bar graph, it will work on a full bar graph, and this is, again, better illustrated outdoors. But if you do flip your toggle switch, it will work on a single light versus the full bar graph, single light. The reason that's in there is in colder temperatures, your AA's will lose output, and we put the single bar graph toggle switch in there. It requires less battery strength to run the meter, and we can temperature rate them lower below 0 degrees Celsius. So in California, most of the time, if you use it on the single bar graph, your batteries will last about 30% longer because it will be running on less battery power. So it's more of a preference than anything else. Now, one of the attachments that you've received with your Model 5600 is another mode of putting signal into a line, which is the inductive clamp. The inductive clamp is just what it says, induction. Although you do go into the direct output, turn the instrument on, you encircle cables typically that are energized with power. Since you cannot go direct hookup, you can try to isolate cables amongst other cables by encircling them. You do have to remember, though, that it is induction, and the same rule applies with normal induction by using the transmitter by itself, and that is you need signal path in 2 directions, metallic signal path in 2 directions to get good signal into that line, which is not true with direct hookup. So for induction mode, whether you're using the super antenna, the blue transmitter setting over a utility, or an inductive clamp, will really only work well when you have signal path in 2 directions to ground. So depending on how your system's grounded determines how these work inductively. On a direct hookup with the direct connection cables, that prerequisite is not true. It wouldn't matter how the system's grounded, or if you were at the end of a run and you didn't have the signal path in 2 directions. So for induction to work properly, you need to have that condition to exist. You will get a little bit of signal sometimes, but you'll notice that you will not trace as far depending on how the grounds are on the cable that you're tracking.